We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything college football. We're going to be keeping an eye on those spring football games tonight. Miami, Florida, starting in about 30 minutes. TCU starting in about an hour. Welcome in. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. Subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends, with your psychiatrist, with your dog, with your priest, with your significant other. Share the video. Welcome in. Tonight is Colorado Cloak and Dagger Friday. Welcome in. You know how this works. I'm going to be doing a monologue. I'll go through your comments and then we'll take your phone calls. The phone lines are not open yet. Every time we open up a live show, we get phone calls. That's great, but I'm not going to answer them quite yet. I'll let you know when the phone lines are open. When they do open, the number is 763-260-1333. I'll repeat it again throughout the night. A lot of people, a lot of different opinions of what this Colorado meeting means on April 17th. We're going to touch upon it. We don't know what it means. We're just going to speculate here. Educated speculation here at Peek Around the Corner when it comes to this April 17th meeting. We're also going to be, talking about another school in the Big 12. I'm sorry. Another school in the Pac-12 having meetings next week. We're going to see if that interests you at all here at Peek Around the Corner. Thanks for coming in, everybody. Skoducky, Greg the Heater, yes. Laura Weiss, Jared Jones, Randy Taylor, Struthers, Dagawa, Hagen, Daniel Montecastle, Mr. Hoosier, Christopher Shannon, Duke 68, Mona Vision, Tony, Tough Tony, Gopher, Gary. Gary's back in the house, back in the corner. Gerald McKinley, Two Master is in the house. Okay, thanks for all coming in. I'm sure there's others piling in. Lou, Curtis Brown, my goodness. Cloak and Dagger Friday. Got to get that Cloak and Dagger mug. We'll be getting to it in a second. First of all, before we get to the stories of tonight, we have to thank our sponsor for tonight's live show, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. The clean, hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, a richer, a healthier coffee that is less bitter, less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans. The little general, the moderator who rules with an iron fist, loves this coffee, the best coffee she's ever had, the smoothest coffee I've ever had. So give it a try. There's a link provided in the description box. And if you do, buy a bag of beans. And if you want to support this channel, put PATC in the comment section. But give this coffee a try. Either way, you will absolutely love it. And also go to our merchandise store. The hat and the mug are selling big. Get your PATC official Cloak and Dagger mug. We're going to be having we're going to be putting some t-shirts up there with the new live show logo on that. I think that's pretty funny. I think that's going to look real good. We'll be putting up there in the next 30 days, I believe. And once again, you know the rules. You know the rules in the chat, PATC community. Cloak and Dagger, baby. Cloak and Dagger Friday. Okay. Look, I want to, before we get to the news of, like, we know the agenda dropped for the April 17th meeting in Colorado. A lot of people have different opinions. That's cool. That's what we love here at Peek Around the Corner. I want you to express those opinions in the comments section, and I want you to give us a phone call later in the show. Tell us what you think. What is going on at the University of Colorado? Is anything going on? I'm highly suspicious. I'm taking it serious for a couple different reasons. We'll get into that. But first on this, I just want to back up a bit. Before we get to today's news, I want to get back to what was it, yesterday's news? Okay. I want to get back to this because I'm seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter and places. And Mick Ivor, this person who doesn't put out his real name, who lots of times he jumps before he looks. He says he heard from a source that Colorado board may vote on leaving the pack as early as Monday. Rick George says there's absolutely no truth to this tweet. And when I did an episode on this, I said, man, there's people, like, they're way over their skis on what this means. This absolutely means nothing. What McIver says absolutely means nothing. What Rick George, the Colorado athletic director, absolutely means nothing. Why he commented on this tweet is so puzzling to me. Rick George says there's absolutely no truth to this tweet. Well, what does that exact? There's not going to be a vote on Monday. It's a remote meeting done remotely. It's not in public, so there can't be a vote. But people are jumping on this saying Rick George, Colorado, has shut down all talks that Colorado could be thinking about moving to the Big 12. I mean, they're literally taking what Rick George said here. There's absolutely no truth to this tweet. And the tweet is saying, there may be a vote on leaving. Maybe a vote. Of course, it's an erroneous report, an erroneous tweet. But Rick George has said nothing. The athletic director of Colorado, the president of Colorado have said nothing on real reports Real reporting by Andrew Michon saying, watch Colorado. Stuart Mandel has heard that Colorado might be poachable in the next, and he's heard that in the last couple weeks. Nobody's batting those reports down. Nobody is saying anything out in public. And I'm not saying I don't blame the president of Colorado for doing that. If the university is in talks with the Big 12, and they are, if they're in deep discussions with the Big 12 and scheduling and all that entails, which they are, I don't blame them from coming out. But then again, when Rick George says there's absolutely no truth to this tweet, a tweet that means absolutely nothing, and then people jump on this, say Colorado has Rick George shut them down, and people should be embarrassed that they think George is having discussions about going to the Big 12 because Rick George didn't do any of that. I think those comments are as ridiculous as McIver's tweet, to be quite honest with you. I mean, essentially Rick George is saying what everybody knew when the tweet came out. No one's voting. No one is voting on Monday. But Rick George definitely did not push the ball forward at all. And John Casano, Colorado has spoken. Colorado hasn't spoken. They haven't spoken. Not at all. This is not speaking. That's my point. That's my point. And then, of course, Brett McMurphy basically summarizes this better than I ever could. Comes off the top rope with an elbow splash. Colorado's athletic director refutes tweet that Buffs, quote, may vote on leaving Pac-12 as early as Monday, unquote. In other words, Rick George didn't refute anything substantial. Nothing substantial. Okay, I wanted to go back to that before we get into... we don't know, at least I don't know here at Peek Around the Corner, what that Monday meeting entails on April 17th. I think it's worth a discussion. I really do. Other people do as well. But the whole notion that Colorado has shut the door and said, Rick George, he came out and said Colorado's not going to the Big 12. Rick George didn't say anything like that in that tweet. I just wanted to go through that once again. Now, what did we learn today? Well, we've learned a couple things. We were waiting for an agenda to pop. And it popped. For April 17th, executive session for the Regents. Resolved that the board of the Regents go into the executive session as permitted by Section 246 Colorado Revised Statutes. The board will discuss the following matter as announced and pursuant to the subsection as listed below. Legal advice on a specific matter, athletics matters. Now I've gone through, everyone has done this on Twitter and gone through the other agenda items listed for other special Colorado board meetings in the last couple of years, especially in and around here in the last month. Again, it's impossible to know. We don't know. We don't have anybody inside that Colorado boardroom. I am sorry. I apologize to you all. We don't know. But I just find it interesting. I find it's okay to speculate on this because legal advice on a specific matter, athletics matters. If you go into the other, there's one or two special board meetings that kind of say the same thing, but most of them don't. And here we sit, okay? What's the date today? April 14th. We've had reports in the last 2 weeks. Again, I go back to Andrew Michon. Andrew Michon's report in the New York Post, watch Colorado. And he said it in the sports media podcast. Marshan and Oran this week, he said, someone told me to watch Colorado. We've had other reporters, Stuart Mandel of Athletics, say yes. I've had people tell me last couple weeks, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but Stuart Mandel says, watch Colorado. There's people that are sources, Colorado, Arizona. There's a lot of frustration in Arizona State. Of course, there's a lot of frustration. We've been telling you that since January 31st. So with all these reports, a lot of them specifically in and around Colorado in the last week, we get an agenda item that says legal advice on the specific matter athletics. It's about athletics, legal matter. So if you would have said, Greg, if you would have said 24 hours ago, last night, you said, Greg, if they do pop out with an agenda for this meeting April 17th, and if it was around possible discussion of realignment for the University of Arizona athletics, what would that agenda say? I would have said something like this, something vague, something very vague, legal advice on a specific matter, and athletics. I mean, this is something that I would have foreseen if this meeting was truly about the discussion of realignment. It doesn't mean that it is. It doesn't mean that April 17th meeting is about the potential realignment for the University of Colorado. In a special meeting in the remote, done remotely, no, there won't be votes on it. But it brings up, again, we talk about odds. We talk about the lines here. I think it's, a lot of those special meetings were in and around athletics conference updates. But there's only a couple of them that really said legal advice on specific matter, athletics matter. I just think the odds of this popping up here at this time when we've had these specific reports, okay. So this was the meeting here, Board of Regents of the University of Colorado, special meeting of the board, Tuesday, June 8th, 2010. This was a meeting a couple days before Colorado did vote to leave, to go to the Pac-12, to leave the Big 12. A special meeting of the Board of Regents was held June 8th. You can read that. Talks about the people that were there. They received legal advice regarding a specific matter as permitted under Colorado statute subsection 246-402. They got a legal advice regarding a specific matter. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, right? You see that? You guys see that right here? Chair Bosley announced that the board would recess into executive session to receive legal advice regarding a specific matter as permitted under Colorado revised statute subsection 246-402. As resolved, the Board of Regents go into executive session as permitted by section 246-402, legal advice on a specific matter, athletics matters, the agenda item for April 17th. And if you go back to June 8th, a couple days before they actually voted on removal, it says all that again. So I think it's okay to take this seriously. Maybe it's not about realignment, but my goodness, what are the odds? What are the chances? After all these reports on Colorado Watch Report, this agenda comes out, and it comes out in the language that I would have suspected it to come out. They're not going to have an agenda that says Colorado Board of Regents thinking about leaving the Pac-12, going to the Big 12 agenda action item. It's not going to be said that way. Do you know how it's going to be said? It's going to be said this way, in my opinion, in my strongly held opinion. But you let me know in the comments section. You let me know in the comments section. You give me a phone call and say, Greg, you're absolutely wrong. Or, Greg, you're taking way too much out of this. Way too much. This means nothing. I want to point you to something else here. Master calendar of meeting events, board meeting, executive session, University of Arizona, date 4/19/2023. So that's Wednesday. Start time 5:30 p.m., 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. Location, University of Arizona. Now, they also have a board meeting set up the next day, University of Arizona, public session. Start time, 9 in the morning. I'm guessing this specific coast time, 10 a.m., location, University of Arizona. That's a public session, 1 hour. Then a board meeting, executive session, University of Arizona. Again, that same day, following the public session that lasts about 6 hours. And then the next day, they have a board meeting, public session, start time 8:30 to 10:45, a little longer than 2 hours. There are people working on trying to get it confirmed that those two meetings in the public session, the one on Thursday, April 20th, and the one on Friday, April 21st, that those are truly public sessions. Now, Arizona, the next set of meetings are scheduled after these April dates, June 1st. So I just want to put that out there in anticipation of what these possible meetings. So there might be a couple of meetings there that we can see in public to see if there's any discussion in and around realignment. Now, I do see comments. Like Michael, and I thank you for coming in. Greg, you're taking way too much out of this. They have used this title, similar title, several times in the last year or so. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But again, they've used a whole host of other titles many, many, many more times. Specific agendas. Real specific agendas. Again, if we're playing the numbers here. We're playing the numbers. What is in that agenda for April 17th is highly vague, unlike most of those board meetings. Most of those board meetings is way more highly vague, and it has the exact description of what you would think, what you would expect if it was a meeting about possible realignment. It matches the language of June 8th. So yes, I agree with you, Michael, but then you got to flip it on the other side of the coin and say, wow, that is highly, maybe the Colorado Board of Regents are trolling us, trolling peek around the corner. But what are the odds? What are the odds that this would be the agenda item, the action item, legal matter, legal advice on athletic matters, just like the same terminology used a couple days before the last time Colorado discussed and went on to join realignment to join a different conference? What are the odds? What are the numbers? I think it's pretty slim. But again, Michael, I don't know. I do not know. And I appreciate your comment. And a lot of people agree with you, Michael, that this is nothing. Gene Calderon says closed session is always vague. Yeah, I see though. Yeah, not to this extent. I see those vague. But come on, look at those closed sessions. I think there's a link in the description box. Legal advice on athletic matters doesn't went right after all these reports. Let me ask you a question. What do you, if it was a discussion on realignment on April 17th in an executive closed session, what would the language would they use if it was about realignment? I'm asking you. It would be this. It would be this. So that's why I think there's smoke, plus some other stuff. I mean, we know that, well, I can tell you, we believe very, very strongly that Colorado and the Big 12 have been having deep, deep discussions. Deep discussions. But I understand. A lot of people don't agree with me. That's just fine. Robert Maffei, do you ever talk with Greg Swam? No, I do not. Once in a while on Twitter, but I've never talked with him. Nathan Jones, Greg, enjoy listening to your opinions. What locals Colorado sports media is saying about the meetings? I haven't heard any reports about what the local Colorado reporters are saying. Nothing. First of all, let me say thank you, Nathan, for your super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity to this channel. Help us keep the lights on. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any local reporter asking questions to the athletic director or to the president. And if there is some report, put it in the chat. Send me a DM at Flag Empire. I mean, can you imagine? You are the university president. And you've got, I keep going back to it because if you've been with us here at Peek Around the Corner, when Andrew Marchand, we've discussed this, when Andrew Marchand goes into specifics and says, watch Colorado, and then on a podcast he says, I had someone told me to watch Colorado. It is our strongly held opinion, and we don't know this for sure, but we've gone through the logic of this. It's a strongly held opinion. No one has told us this. Nobody. No one. But a strongly held opinion that somebody in the media industry who believes they have knowledge that, someone talking with ESPN in mind told Andrew Marchand that watch Colorado. Someone with knowledge of ESPN's actions. Because that's where Andrew Marchand and John Aron, they've said it. They have the media connections year after year after year. They're fantastic at what they do. I don't think it was a former athletic director, former president, current this or that in administration. I think it was a media industry person who told Andrew Marchand, watch Colorado, which means that all these other reports about Colorado and Big 12 having deep discussions that are around scheduling and other matters, all that is accurate. And I understand that people don't believe that's accurate. But so when Andrew Marchand says this, and there's other reports, not just Andrew Marchand, The Athletic also said the same thing. Stuart Mandel said the same thing. So when you have these reports coming out and there's still silence in Colorado, nobody's batting down those reports. What Rich George said to McIver, that's not batting down those reports. That's just saying there's no vote on Monday. We all knew that already. There's absolute silence. No one is knocking that down, those reports down from Colorado. Then they have a closed session remote meeting on April 17th. An agenda pops and it says what it says. Legal advice athletics matters, the same terminology that was used on June 8th, 2010. I don't blame anybody from being either side of this coin, but my goodness, don't you think there are some dots that are being connected? Or again, am I way off base? I'm probably way off base. Thank you, Nathan Jones. I appreciate you super chat. Thank you so very much. Let's get to more of these comments before we open up the phone lines. MP, is this Steam? I think it is. Nathan, Cloak and Dagger, Steam, money, perch. Absolutely. I've had questions here in regards to what does the Arizona State money perch saying. We haven't talked to him the last few days. It's the same thing though. Be previous to that, Arizona State, they wanted this deal done already. A better deal is not coming down the road. Arizona State they have been very vocal. January 31st, we told you all, the money perch told us that Arizona State actually spoke up in that January 30 meeting, said they were frustrated. And then a couple weeks later, the athletic director actually came out and said it in public. And then he also said, Ray Anderson also said, we expect the deal to get done by middle of March. Now we are firmly in middle of April. No deal done. And all these reports saying they're months away from getting a deal done. Months away. And there's always this talk of, well, they're months away from getting a deal done because it takes the potential streaming partners of Apple and Amazon longer to create the contract to get it done because they don't have the experience. True, except for the fact, who is the Pac-12 linear network partner? Who's the leader in the clubhouse? Give me a name. The CW? No, not according to the latest reports. ESPN? Really? They're miles and miles apart, millions and millions of dollars. Fox? They haven't been in the room with the Pac-12, according to many, many reports. So who is the leader in the clubhouse for the linear network part of this package? I mean, I don't think they don't have that sewn up at all. Again, we've been saying this consistently at Peek Around the Corner. The Pac-12 presidents haven't even received a comprehensive deal in front of them to hash out. The steam is real. The steam is real in regards to certain Pac-12 schools talking to the Big 12, and those discussions are getting deeper and deeper and deeper every day that there is no Pac-12 deal. Curtis says the Pac-12 screwed up when the Pac canceled the Pac versus Big Ten scheduling alliance 10 years ago. Michael Whitmer. Greg, not disagreeing on Colorado potentially leaving, just don't believe the Colorado athletic director would comment specifically on that tweet or be talking with local media members if it were imminent. Now, great comment. First of all, I don't think Rich George should have commented at all on that tweet because it was a worthless tweet. It had no value to it. Of all the things that Rich George could have knocked down in the last few weeks, he decided to knock down a MacGyver tweet. Very, very odd. But what Rick George did, he did not knock down that Colorado's not talking with the Big 12. Or that meeting has nothing to do with realignment. He didn't say that at all. He just said, there's no truth to that tweet. There is no vote. We already knew that. So in my opinion, Rick George didn't accomplish anything. He didn't say anything. In regards to talking with the local media members, I'm open to reading or listening or looking at some local reports of Rick George talking to local media members saying, we're not going to the Big 12. We're not going to the Big 12. Maybe he has done that and I haven't seen those reports. That could be a possibility. You see, for me, seeing people post that doesn't convince me of it. I have to see the reporting. I have to see Rick George. Someone wrote an article, local Colorado reporter saying, Rick George is saying, we're not going to the Big 12. There's no talks of it. I have to see an interview of it. But I haven't seen any of that. So if somebody has it, again, send it to me at my DM at Flug Empire. Talk about it in the comment section. Or give me a phone call when we have the phone lines open. Direct me to where I need to go on that. Again, fantastic comment by Mr. Whitmore. Appreciate it. Dan Thomas, Greg, you mentioned steam coming from Washington the other day. Care to expand on that? Only to the point where I don't mess anything up. I will say that Washington is very, very active. Washington is very active, surprisingly active with the Big 12 even. And of course the Big 10. Especially a few weeks down the line here. Washington isn't just sitting back. Yes, their president is the leader, the chairperson. I understand all that. But Washington, Washington is not just sitting back. They know how much trouble the Pac-12 is in right now. This isn't just a couple schools going, my goodness, things are not going good. No, it's not going good. Didn't someone at Colorado compare the Big 12 to a JV conference, Laura Weiss? Yeah, I saw that somewhere. Again, before we open up the phone lines, I have to say this one more time here at Peek Around the Corner. The Pac-12 schools don't want to leave each other. They are peers. They want to play with each other. They want to continue to the Pac-12. No one is going to leave the Pac-12 unless they feel like they're forced to leave. And we're getting to that point. There is a change in landscape in college football. Change in landscape. NIL, where these boosters now have to put money into an NIL collective. So there's schools, so there's sports teams that represent the front porch of the university so they can go out and recruit to get the best student athletes, which help get the best students into the universities. This is a change. You need to have the best, of course, the money is important, but you need to have the best exposure possible. Things are different now than they were 20 years ago, than 10 years ago. That's why Texas and Oklahoma left to the SEC, to improve their exposure. They're rich either way. Texas and Oklahoma is rich either way. Yes, they're going to get way more media money with the SEC, but the exposure. USC and UCLA moved to the Big Ten for really the exposure, to make sure they're in the room for the 2026 gold rush that we talk about here at Peek Around the Corner, where the playoffs, the new playoffs are going to happen they're going to happen in 2024. But we don't know what's going to happen in 2026. And everybody wants to be in the room to make sure that they're part of the future, that they have a voice. So Colorado, yes, they're a great university. Yes, they'd be the biggest research university if they come back to the Big 12. Yes, the Colorado does not want to leave their peers in the Pac-12. But yes, Colorado wants to compete. They hired Deion Sanders. They don't want to play on Ion. They don't want to play on the CW. They don't want to have 70% of their content on the streaming platform when we don't know how it works. That's the change. It's the change. All of this stuff is just breathing down on these presidents and athletic directors. From the biggest brand schools of Oklahoma and Texas to schools like Colorado and Arizona in Arizona State. And of course, Washington and Oregon. And we're going to see the same thing out in the ACC country. We're going to see it. And the story's going to be even bigger and more dramatic than we're seeing now. And this story is dramatic enough. You saw what Florida State's been saying. They want to compete. They want to compete at the highest level, regardless of what court or field they're playing on. And you can't do it when you're $35 million behind every single year to SEC and Big Ten, or in the case of Colorado at a lower level, if we're buried on ION or the CW. I get all the arguments. No school has left one conference to another and gone down in academics and research. I get it. But we never had NIL, did we? Until 2 years ago. And in the future, we're going to have these student athletes become employees. They're going to be representatives, CBA. We're going to have all these new things. That's my point. There's more to the story than Colorado looks at Big 12 as JV. That very well could be true when it comes to research and academics. But there has always been more to the story than that. Let's get to your phone calls. The comment section is lighting up. Woo! Lighting up. Lot of disagreement with Greg. Praise the Lord, Greg. I've got that at least from Cornelius Green. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Spitfire the Dragon TV love in positive light. Thank you for coming in. The CW is in the households in all 50 states. They are like Fox when they started to do sports. CW wants to do the exact game plan for them. Okay. There's a CW supporter. There's lots out there. Now, according to the last reports of John Oran, there's little chance that the CW is going to get any part of the Pac-12 package, and that the CW is only interested in a very small package of games. So, I don't think that's even... I don't think George Kliavkoff has really established a leader when it comes to who's going to be their linear network for their Pac-12 content. Sky, I haven't watched the CW since Dawson Creek went off the air. And I got to tell you, my wife, the little general, the moderator, she hated how Dawson Creek ended. She did not like how that show ended. Just to put that in there, I don't know if she would ever go back to the CW. She was very, very upset with how Dawson Creek ended. Scott Geyer, thanks for coming on in. If Colorado were to move, the Big 12 would give a heads up to ESPN, especially with their contract saying the new school would be on par if they were par. Look, ESPN, they're in these discussions. There's heads up every day. Colorado, Big 12, ESPN, Fox, they're in these discussions. The discussions are going on. There is no surprise here. Cloak and Dagger, however you want to call it. And again, I know there's still some people out there who believe there's no discussions going on. And there's nothing I can really do about that at this point. Mr. Monkey says he's bringing up great points here. When A&M and Missouri went to the SEC had 2 AAU schools, Vandy and Florida. The Big 12 had 5. So this is an academic downgrade. Mr. Monkey says, he makes a very good point. So maybe it has happened in the past where a school in realignment goes from a higher academic conference to a lower one. Mr. Monkey is making a very, very good argument that it's happened before. So let me, I was corrected. Let me just say, it doesn't even matter at this point. It's happened before, it can happen. It might happen. Because the Pac-12 is not getting a media deal right now that can get all those schools on board to sign. And people are saying, Greg, they still have a lot of time. Yeah, on the calendar they do. But not in reality. Those schools, they're in a prisoner dilemma right now. Colorado knows that their value in all this is being the first one to jump. If 2 schools jump before Colorado suddenly is not quite as valuable to the Big 12. But if they're the first ones to jump, oh baby, they're valuable to the Big 12, because now Big 12 can get another school and satisfy their media partners. 4th window in football. They get a basketball team, Gonzaga, possibly another one out in the East to keep West Virginia, Cincinnati at ease. So Colorado's most value is to be the first one that jumps. Okay, let's get to your phone calls. Keep commenting. I know there's a lot of comments. Again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, you will get notified, because we can pop up at any time with a live show and an episode. That's what we do here at Peek Around the Corner. When something breaks, we get on here as quick as we possibly can. Smash that like button if you like our content. It helps with the algorithm so much, and share the video. If you want to donate to the channel, make sure your comment gets read. Hit that $ in the chat. Make a comment. I'll get to it as fast as I can. Your donations and our independent college football channel helps us to keep the lights on, helps us to keep providing info and hopefully entertainment to you all in the PATC community. Let's get to your phone calls. I've wasted too much time. Give me a second. Everybody. Here at Peek Around the Corner. I believe the phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. A lot of people disagree with me. That's okay. We can disagree. Call and say, Greg, there's nothing to this. Or, Greg, you're really off the beaten path. You really are blind, Greg. You're in your information silo. You don't know what you're talking about. Give us a call. 763-260-1333. Arizona, 4 meetings coming up. Probably means nothing.
Call from
Western Civic with my Oregon hat on.
Western Civic with his Oregon hat on. Thanks for calling. The floor's yours. Let me have it.
Mr. Flugar, thanks for keeping the discussion on the edge, but we're going to have to talk about your BLD, but we'll do that later. But the reason I said I got my Oregon hat on is because we're going to keep it weird, man. We're going to get really weird right now. You ready for that? Can we get a little weird?
Yes, we can.
It's totally on topic, but it's a little weird, okay? Keep it weird, Oregon style. Here we go. Last time I had the privilege of speaking with you, the Golden Gopher, Mr. Flugar there.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned the 32 core teams. There's 16 of the SEC, 16 in the Big, and beyond that, I mean, you can certainly see some other big institutions that might get a full share if they're added to one of those conferences, but are close to it. But basically, that's the nut. But what I bit my tongue, because what I really wanted to say is, Well, really, there are 33 teams. I don't want to get all Masonic on you or anything. Whoa, where's it going? Anyway, but the 33rd team, of course, is Notre Dame.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I bit my tongue. I didn't say that. I didn't want anyone to go, uh-oh, here he goes. He's going to, or something like that. So it's a side thing. But so then we look into, Little's running the big now, right? Mr. Petiti.
Yes, Petiti.
Well, you know what Mr. Petiti is up to? And I actually didn't even know this until after I'd called your show. But
Okay.
he is currently the co-CEO of something called, I almost can't believe it, called the 33rd team.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what that does? That group, that organization is a football think tank. Okay, if you want to know what is, and what they do is future modeling. This is how the billionaires run the world, okay? Is they gather elites together and they model and they lead the discussion and they have a script about where they want things to go. And none of this stuff is haphazard. That's why you got the BLD, Big Lubbock Delusion there, Mr. Flugar. We'll address that. There's a cure for that. I don't know. I don't know. There's so many of you out there that the Big 12 has got such a marketing campaign going on about this. I mean, I don't know. YouTubers like yourself, maybe you're getting some advertising dollars to keep talking about the arrests are imminent in the four corners, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So that's interesting. So if you really want to know, and this is a tip, if anyone really wants to know where this is going, and this is for myself because I haven't seen it, I have no reason to believe that the model we have about the 325 big conferences isn't correct. We just don't know the timing. We think that information is really good. That memo that gets cut and pasted around is really a compiling of good information from last summer. But anyway, so that is what it is. If you want to know what's going on with college football, get Petiti's models from the 33rd team, okay? Whatever that is, I don't know what it is, but if you can find that, there's your answer. Because I guarantee you, and this gives a whole other look, whatever got rid of Warren, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Whatever got Warren to go out the door, it's clear that the ruling class has their man in place now. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Look, football is a big deal. It's sports entertainment is a big deal in population, appeasement and this kind. It's a big deal. So, anyway, you can get the models there now. So that's it. I'm going to take my Oregon keep it weird hat off now. Okay.
Got it.
But we're taking that off, and let's go back to your Big Lubbock Delusion. Okay. Look. You got to go back to Warren's speech at Big Ten Media Days last year. Okay, do you remember that speech, Mr. Flugar?
I can't recite it, but I'm sure I paid close attention to it.
Well, everybody should go back and look at it again because he said some things that were very explicit in that speech. One of them he said is that all this stuff is planned well in advance, of course, we know that. And then the other thing he said is that they're going to have a footprint in every time zone in the country. Okay? So that means the mountain time zone. And there is no better, and look, all due respect to my Utah alma mater, there is no better candidate in the mountain time zone for the big than Colorado. And that's irrespective of their football. I mean, that doesn't matter about Coach Prime or anything like that. Even before Coach Prime, they still would be the first choice in the Mountain Time Zone for the big for a million reasons. And I once dated a girl who was a graduate student getting a PhD in some moon of Uranus at Colorado. They're like NASA's baby, okay? They are a serious, major research institution. People keep saying, no, I don't know what they're looking at, but they do. They're behind California, but they're right up there with Washington and California. I mean, they're not that, but they're up there, okay? And there's just no way. It doesn't make any sense for them to go to the Big 12. Sorry, that's just. And one of the things they might be looking at, and it's just as easy they're looking at the expansion things for the Pac as they are looking at going to the Big 12. I mean, you've got to look at. I mean, presumably any of the if they are going to a 16-team Pac conference, and again, we're all waiting to see what the Big's going to do, right? Either they're going to expand shortly or they're not.
Yeah.
But and the other thing is these people already know that. Okay, even though there's not a commissioner, he's just doing unless there's some other powers greater than the president at play, and that's quite possible. Okay, with this Petiti coming in, it's quite possible. But assuming things are conventional, these presidents aren't hiding the ball from their colleagues, their other presidents in the aggregate. I mean, we know that there's going to be a renewal of collegiality between these presidents moving forward. They're not going to leave people in a big lurch like that. And I'll just say this. I would say, even if it goes super bad, say you guys are all right. All the others, say both Arizona schools, Colorado, everybody bails. The only ones left are like Utah and Oregon State and like maybe ASU. I still hang out with, hey, if it's going to be that way, take those Pac-12 credentials and Utah just be in the playoffs every year forever. But we ain't going to the Lubbock. That ain't happening. So anyway, so anyway, you just, man, we'll go back with our old mountain. We'll bring back Hawaii, man. We'll get our Polynesian pipeline back. We'll just run amok with the old schools back there, and you'll have to put us in the playoffs every year, and we'll see you then.
All right.
But no, seriously, Colorado is not going to the Big 12. I mean, the whole notion that Colorado would be in the Big 12 and Colorado State would be in the Pac. And I just think, again, I don't know when, but if the Big goes west again, they're going to take at least 6 at once. Okay. Or they're not going to do it at all.
I got it.
Again, whatever this is just as likely to be about, what kind? This is some quirky arrangement we're working out with Tulane. We better look at it. It could just as easily be that, and it's in fact more likely that it's that than they're going to the Big 12. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
And thanks for being there, Mr. Pflugar.
You got it. Thanks for the phone
keep your
call.
head on a swivel. All right, keep it weird, man.
Keep it weird. Keep your head on a swivel.
Woo, man, that's how they do it. Is they predictive program and they model.
Yes.
Event 201. I didn't say that.
Got
All right. Hey,
I'll check it out. Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. No war.
No war. Thank you. Oh, call back. Call back, 702. You've been trying to get in. Call back. Call back, 702. 702, give us a call. 702, give us a call. You've been trying to get on. Finally had an opening, and I lost you. You hung up or something. 702, give us a call back. I will say I do remember. Here we go. There we go.
Call from
Eric calling.
I didn't get the name.
Eric calling.
Eric, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, how's it going? We talk a little bit on Twitter back and forth. I'm a big BYU fan, by the way. Go Cougs.
Got it. Go Cougs. You guys got a linebacker that the Gophers needed.
But he's lacking a lot of common sense. I think he's been hanging out on that Uranus and has some lack of oxygen to the brain there a little bit.
Well,
their answer is they should go after Hawaii, and there's no way Colorado's even looking or considering the Big 12. Come on, everybody knows they're at least considering it. I don't know if they will or not.
They're considering it.
To say they're not considering it is A, ridiculous, and B, I want to go over this endowment stuff and education stuff a little bit.
Got it.
It's way overblown, and the Big 12 gets a bad rap. I can have something can send you on it, but for an example, BYU, if you have all the Pac in the Big 12, BYU would rank third in endowment at $2.89 billion. okay? They're not lacking for money or endowments. The school sponsor does not pay for athletics. They've got to be self-supporting, but they got no problem paying for education. They have one account. Now, Greg, this is one account only of their many accounts. It doesn't have 100 million. It has $100 billion in it, okay?
Yes.
I don't know if you read that article.
No, I did not,
they
but
could-
yeah,
they could sneeze a couple $1 billion out of their nose and penny change and add to their endowment if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Another of the 8 or 9 schools in the Big 12 are next on the list of endowments, well before some of the Pac-12 schools. Just to give you an example, Utah's endowment is barely over $1 billion. Utah ranks 103 academically. BYU is 69. If you go to the U.S. News and World Report, which ranks academic schools, which is kind of considered the Bible of that, BYU is a Tier 1 school, for example. Utah is a Tier 2. BYU would be in the top 20% of the Pac-10 right now academically, as would many of the Big 12 schools. So this idea that it's a huge academic drop-off and there's not some really good academic schools in the Big 12 like BYU, Kansas, Texas Tech, I could name more, that would actually be in the top 30% academically, even in the Pac-10, is totally bogus. So I think, that's really, really overblown. But what it comes down to is leverage. You know it, I know it. When you make a business deal, it comes down to leverage. Right now, the Pac-12 has zero leverage, the Pac-10. And every day, their leverage goes down.
Yeah.
Because nobody needs the Pac-10 content. They may like to have it. It may be nice. It may be okay. But they don't need it. The Pac needs them, but they don't need it. So they have all the leverage. Every day, leverage goes down. The bottom line in making a business deal is leverage. So, and they have none. That's the bottom line. And we can talk about this all we want, but it's going to come down to, what the old saying, walk the walk or talk the talk. Let's see who signs the grant of rights. They're not going to get 12 people to sign the grant of rights as it is now. So in my opinion, it's not if people leave, it's when. It might not be this go around. It might be after the next contract. But people are going to leave the Pac-12 because they have zero leverage. And the most important thing about Brett Yormark jumping early is that he, at least by doing that, had some leverage by jumping early.
absolutely.
He still has some leverage to get a deal. The Pac-10 has no leverage, and that's the bottom line. They won't leave because of research. They won't leave because of academics. Many of the schools in the Pac-12 or in the Big 12, like BYU next year, has a bigger endowment than 80% of the Pac and are ranked higher academically. And BYU isn't at all. I'm gonna send you on Twitter the list. It has the list of their endowments. It also has the list of the average median income of their graduates. And many of those Big 12 schools, BYU's third after Washington and Stanford. Then it's BYU. Even before some of the big name Pac schools. And then there's 8 or 9 Big 12 schools that are before many of the Pac schools that would be in the upper half. So that's just overblown and, quite frankly, a bunch of baloney.
Got it. I agree with and this is just a reminder how college football really needs to have BYU versus Utah in a rivalry game in the Pac-12. But yes, I do understand all those points you made. BYU, great and huge endowment. It's not going to come down to all that stuff because the Pac-12 doesn't have a media deal.
Hey, Greg, one more thing real quick.
Yep.
Everybody knows that is in this area that's a hell of a lot harder to get a player into BYU academically than it is the University of Utah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Yeah, a lot of great information there. You guys got, BYU got a linebacker that we needed to get here at Minnesota. A transfer. Huh? Hello. I think he's off.
Call from
Larry Pilgrim.
Larry, thanks for calling again, sir. You're in the house. The floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
I'm calling in about I've had my little wars with all these BYU fans on academics, and U.S. rankings has Utah at 105 and BYU at 77, and I'm just like, how many PhD courses does BYU offer? They offer one in microbiology. You can get a PhD from Utah in more courses than they have total curriculum at BYU. If this U.S. news media academic ranking is bull crap. It's a joke. When you look at their rankings, you're like, BYU is supposedly a top 10 law school. I'm just like, I can't stand this bull crap. I'm like, go to Shanghai rankings. That's more of they use different measures. U.S. News uses just crap measures. What's the city you're in? It's just bull crap. It's just bull crap.
Yeah.
And so to sit and say a university that can give you one PhD is better than one that can give you a PhD in more classes than you have total curriculum in your university is it's absurd. And when you talk about endowments, you can't compare a state flagship university and a private university when it comes to endowments. You don't need a huge endowment in a state flagship university because it's taxpayer funded, where a private university needs a little bit higher endowment. It's basically a security deposit. It's just like, I don't know how to educate people on this crap, but it's just absurd and ridiculous. I'm
gonna just say both are great universities. They both serve their communities well. Great.
Yes.
And I wish you guys were in the same conference so the rest of the country couldn't. Yeah, I know, but
in the WAC.
Yeah, I know. I
We
understand.
were in the WAC.
Yeah, I get that. I wish you had joined the same conference again because the rest of the country would enjoy this rivalry. It's intense. We would love it. I'm just saying from a selfish standpoint, a Gopher here sitting in Minnesota. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Well, I'm going to give you some heads. So the rivalry, I used to watch it back when they were in the WAC, and then they were in the Mountain West together, and it was a really good rivalry, and it was fun, and it was in state, and actually both teams would root for the other teams when they weren't playing each other. And then, Utah got elevated. They got promoted. They couldn't take BYU with them. Should Utah have stayed in the Mountain West because the Pac wasn't going to take BYU? No. Just like Utah fans aren't mad at USC. We understand. You're getting promoted. You're getting more money. You're getting this. We can't be mad at USC. We're not going to hold a grudge about that. And so the rivalry, it went south when it's just there was this heated rivalry to play BYU, but there was nothing to benefit for Utah. If they won, as much as you could say, well, BYU is viewed as a Power 5. They've never played in a Power 5, and they would lose to crap teams. So if you lost to BYU, you were very discredited, but you never got credit for beating them. So it was a lose-lose for Utah, and we didn't want to play the rivalry because it was just a no-win situation. You get 3 out-of-conference games. We would schedule a FCS, a Mountain West, and BYU was our supposed Power 5. And I'm telling you, I'd rather play the Floridas, the Baylors, and the Michigans than I would BYU.
Yeah. I'm just saying from a...
Big 12, if they're in the Big 12, maybe there's something you're playing for. They're in a P5 conference. But when they were in as an independent, there was just nothing to gain for Utah, and it was a lot of emotions spent with nothing to gain. Yeah. And so I just, I used to root for BYU when they weren't playing Utah. And then when you tried to explain to BYU fans, it's different playing a Power 5 schedule. You don't get to play 5 P5 teams and you get, some cupcakes all the time in between. Like, injuries happen. You got to have depth. And they don't get it. They want to argue with you, and they're unbearable.
Okay.
They're
All right.
unbearable.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate it. Got other calls coming in. Thank you. Okay, I just took the phone call off. I guess not. Hold on.
Call from
Soap from Space City.
The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Well, Greg, it's great to talk to you. I hope it finds you and the little general well.
Thank you so very much.
Let me ask you, first off, earlier today I was watching a podcast, or watching you, and my right in the middle of your podcast, it went dead.
Yeah.
Was that something on my end? Or
No,
your end?
that was something on our end, uncontrolled. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen tonight. So that was something on kind of complicated, but it's not going to happen again tonight. So everything's okay. The technology's okay. We're all okay. But that was on our end, kind of.
Well, I think I was afraid maybe those Pac-10 bad guys were cutting you off, getting in with the Google YouTube folks. You know, I wasn't too sure.
Yeah.
But to kind of counteract, or not really counteract, but to say that Colorado is not going to go to the Big 12 is just wrong. I mean, let me ask you, Greg. If someone steals something from me and I go take it back, am I stealing something? I don't think so.
I guess not. I guess not.
Of the Big 8.
Yeah.
And Big 12.
Yeah.
Since 1876.
Yeah.
Their home is the Big 12.
Yeah.
They made a mistake by going to the Big 10 or Big 12, and they'll admit it. They went there for one reason, which was money. They were promised a whole lot of money, and the premise of it was the Pac-12 network was going to make them so much more money. Well, we know what happened to the Pac-12 network. Now, you look at the situation, and I don't think it's a stretch. I don't know anybody who really believes that the Pac-12 is going to get more money than the Big 12 is. So it just makes sense on a financial end for them to move back where they belonged in the first place. They made a mistake moving. Now, I like to use Occam's razor as
sure.
When I have two competing hypotheses. The
sure.
one with the fewest assumptions is usually the correct one. Well, we know that at some point in time that Washington and Oregon are going to leave the Pac-12. As soon as they've already made roads in to go to the Big Ten. That's what they want. So at some point in time, they're going to leave.
I agree with you. 100. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's obvious that the Pac-12 is going to be greatly diminished. And that having been said, it's not, when you try to assume that the Pac-12 is either going to have the money or the exposure, you can't come up with an assumption like that. It's just too far-fetched. It's one or the other. And that's not going to be enough to keep Colorado from going home. And I think we're at this point, Greg, where we can reasonably say Colorado is going to move. You really have to go stretch out there and make some great assumptions that they're not going to move. They are going to move. And once they do, now this is just my belief. I believe Arizona is going to move. They don't want to be the first one to move. But they have the great excuse that, hey, we want to be in a basketball conference. We want to be in a basketball conference. And I think that's going to get the dominoes falling. But Colorado is gone. Anyone who doesn't think that Colorado is not going to be part of the Big 12 this time next year is just dead wrong. Noah might be. I very well could be, taking a leap out there, but I don't believe so. I think the fewer assumptions are that they will be part of it.
Do you believe that meeting on Monday has to do with realignment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and why wouldn't it? I mean, what other topic would they have? I mean, I'm sure they have plenty of topics, but that's going to be addressed, whether it's in April or whether it's in June, or gosh forbid, in August. They're going to move.
Yeah.
Colorado is gone. There is no reason for Colorado to stay in the Pac-10. They are much more aligned with their brethren in the Big 12. I mean, my gosh, their rivalries with Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State, those go back over 100 years. There was nothing for them to move from the Big 12 out to the Pac-10 except money. And when that didn't come through, there's no reason for them not to move back. I mean, if you go back to 2010 and look at the documents on why, or the discussion on why they were moving, the big reason was money. That was the big reason given. Lots of different things, but the big reason was primarily money. One last thing, Greg.
Yes, sir.
I do have a bias towards the Big 12, but I've got to tell you, I'm rather disappointed in the wokeness on the West Coast, that they are not standing up to the fact that the CW is broadcasting Live Golf. What's it going to be like for all those people in the Pac-12 when on a Saturday, when Cal is playing Stanford, all of the ads during halftime are going to be promoting Saudi golf? If the tables were turned and it were, let's say, the Big 12 that was trying to promote Saudi golf, darn well all those hypocrites in California will be standing up saying, no, we're not going to play any games against the Big 12 that are broadcast on Saudi, with Saudi backers. But due to the fact that they are, their glorious Pac-10 is involved with it and keeping it intact, they're not going to say anything about it. So, it's just hypocrisy at the highest level for me. I'm not a supporter of the Saudi regime. And for those people who should be standing up and normally would be standing up and saying something about it, their silence is deafening.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Great call. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Call again. Thank you very much. Cameron B, thank you for the super chat donation. Appreciate it. Can you put the kibosh on BYU Utah talk? Yeah, let's not have any more calls. I enjoyed the calls on the BYU Utah, and we're gonna that's gonna happen again here in this National College Football Live Show. Of course, we're gonna have BYU Utah going like this, Ohio State, Michigan going like this, Alabama, Auburn. Same thing over and over and over again. But I think for tonight, I think we've had our fill. But next live show, you can go at it again for a little bit. But I enjoyed the calls. But yeah, let's put the kibosh on any more Utah, BYU going down a resume list. But again, I did enjoy the calls. No question about it. Rivalries, that's what college football is all about. But this is a national show, so we'll go on to other things. So I appreciate it, Cameron B, for your super chat. Thank you so very, very much. Spitfire. He's saying, sorry, Colorado had enough of schools that are located in Texas. Colorado does not want to be in the same conference with BYU, TCU, and Baylor, period. So a lot of disagreements in the PATC community. I tell you what, I wonder if you ask Deion Sanders. with nobody around, just you and Deion Sanders, asking Deion Sanders. Now I know he's just the head football coach. He's not a decision maker. He's not the president. He's not the faculty. He's not the booster. He's not the athletic director. Deion Sanders, new head football coach. He could be out of there in 2 years. You don't make realignment decisions based on a new head football coach. But if you ask Deion Sanders in a private room saying, Deion Sanders, where would you rather play your college football program? Where would you rather recruit? Would you rather compete in the Pac-12 or compete in the Big 12? I would put my chips in the middle of the table that says the Big 12. I think Deion Sanders would love to recruit in the state of Texas. However, I understand Colorado faculty, the administration, they moved to the Pac-12. They get so many of their students in the state of California high school students. A lot of them go to the University of Colorado's. A lot of their outstate student population is from the state of California. And that's helped the university immensely. A lot of things go into this. But again, at Peek Around the Corner, we've said this over and over and over again. Nobody wants to leave the Pac-12, but they might be forced to leave. They might feel that they're absolutely forced to leave. Look, I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to be very blunt here. This might very well be a situation, and we've said this before. This is not the first time we're saying this, but this might be a situation where Fox and ESPN has made the decision they do not want to have. They do not want to carry content. They do not want to distribute the content of a Pacific Coast Conference because it's too regional. It doesn't have enough bandwidth. It doesn't have enough reach. And they rather have those invaluable schools, those great schools in the Pac-12, those great assets be a part of other conferences. See, I think Yormark got it right from the very get-go. Our strength is to become a national conference as quick as possible so we can make sure the Big 12 institutions and this conference are in the room to make the decisions for 2026 and beyond. Brett Yormark went out and he's about to achieve that, I believe. But the Pac-12 has had these opportunities for years and years and years and years, and they failed to act. Many different reasons throughout the last 25 years, but there's still that regional conference. Even the Big Ten said we can't be just a Midwestern conference. We can't do it. We got to get to the East, Penn State, then Rutgers and Maryland, and now they went to UCLA and USC. Only the SEC, with their population, their demographics, being able to support their athletic departments that support the front porch of the universities, only the SEC region seems to be able to make it work. So I think, people talk about endowments and research and all that. It's all important. It used to be way important in the past, but we're at 2023. This is college football's peek around the corner. Things have been changing. Things are changing. They're going to continue to change. And I just don't think a regional conference is going to work anymore. Just like I don't think the NCAA is going to work anymore. Just like I believe bigger conferences are going to be making more decisions and the Supreme Court is going to allow that at some point, but not the NCAA. So I think ESPN and Fox have sort of told the Pac-12 already with their low bid offers, not even offers, discussions. I think they've said to the Pac-12 schools, we're not interested. We have filled up a lot of our windows. We got a few left. And there's no question that the ESPN is in discussions with the Big 12, with Colorado. They're in that room. So that's what we think here at Peek Around the Corner. That's why since February 24th, we flipped the script. We flipped the odds. All the way up until February 24th, we at Peek Around the Corner said that the favorite, the chalk, was the Pac-12 wasn't going to get poached again, that they would be able to contain to have their 10 current universities and expand. On February 24th, we've heard enough. We've heard enough. Not just reports from sources. And there was a comment earlier saying, Greg keeps saying we at Peek Around the Corner. It is we at Peek Around the Corner. It's a definite we at Peek Around the Corner. Do you think I broke that March 31st story at USC calling the Big Ten? That was in the Los Angeles Times article. Do you think I broke that? Do you think I've got people on a Rolodex here? Like on a phone? Go bup, 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 bup? No. No. It wasn't me. It was definitely we. B-Tam and his associates and others. And that we, by the way, is growing. Daniel Montecastle, who's just gave us a super chat. Thank you so very much once again for your incredible generosity and your incredible friendship. Thank you, Daniel, for helping us keep the lights on here at Peek Around the Corner. Ask Daniel. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but Daniel knows it's a we. When I say we at Peek Around the Corner, there's no other truer statement that I make throughout the night. Oh, it's a we. It definitely is not a me. Are you kidding me? Definitely a we. Definitely. Okay, let's get back to your phone calls. Daniel, Mr. Hoosier, once again, thank you for your generosity and for your friendship. Appreciate it. Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel because you'll get notified of our next live show on our next episode. Follow us at Flag Empire on Twitter because we usually give people a heads up on Twitter when we're going live. Once again, we cover everything in college football. Again, we are on this story because it's such a huge story. It has been going on for so long, and it has huge implications. No matter which way this goes. If the Pac-12 can sign a media deal, and keep their conference together, it's going to be an incredibly fascinating media deal. Because it's not going to be like the other power conferences. And it's going to be so interesting to see how it plays out. Does it work? Whatever they do. Because whatever they do, it's going to be drastically different. If they can get those 10 Pac-12 schools to sign on board, it's going to be drastically different than Big 12s, ACCs, Big 10, and SEC. And it's going to be fascinating to watch. And if they cannot hold it together, who goes to the Big 12? Does the Big 10 expansion door that's open, crack, goes even farther open? The door, the expansion door of the Big 10? What does California, Stanford do? What does Utah do? So no matter how this goes, it's a fascinating story. And I've said this over and over again. People get mad at me because, Greg, you're being too negative about the situation. I'm going to tell you this as blunt as I can say it. I am holding back on the negativity. I'm actually holding back. And I might not be doing a very good job of it, but I'm trying to hold back because there is so much steam and those college reporters that are supposedly who are in a conspiracy with Endeavor, who's just putting out propaganda. I got to tell you, they're way more professional than I am because they're holding back. They're actually being very, very conservative on what they're putting out. Take that however you want to take it. Again, Daniel, thank you so much for the incredible donation. I appreciate it. Okay, let's get back to the phone lines. I got to open them up again. Sorry, I had to go on a little bit of a rant there. Phone lines are back open. Back open. 763-260-1333. Once again, the agenda item for Colorado, April 17th, special board meeting, executive session only. legal advice on a specific matter. Athletics matters. A lot of people disagree in the chat. Some people believe this means nothing. Some people believe it could mean something. Some people believe it means everything. And then we have here the Board of Regents, University of Colorado, June 8, 2010. Look at that second paragraph. Chair Bosley announced that the board would recess into executive session to receive legal advice regarding a specific matter as permitted under Colorado Revised Statute subsection 246402, same subsection that is in that agenda item for April 17th.
Call from
Jeff Fuller.
Jeff Fuller. Jeff Fuller, thanks for calling. I appreciate all your Twitter comments. Great stuff. Thanks for calling. The floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. Pleasure to speak with a member of 12 and on, or definitely one of Karen's highest paid employees. I've heard that
Yes.
you are at the top of Endeavor's paid list, and I like to consider myself an honorary member. But
Yes.
it's been quite fascinating to watch and listen to this whole process and to somewhat participate in it. It's really interesting because, there's always been, we're talking sports, we're talking about who's the best. So, college sports fans by nature, who's the top, who's ranked the highest. So, you've got the conferences sort of pitted against each other in general. And then, you've had this history of the Pac-12 and the Big 12 sort of going after each other. But really, if you look at the history, long-term history, I mean, the Pac-12 has tried to kill the Big 12 multiple times. They've taken members, Colorado, so that's one, thing that's on the record. But even then, they went after, Larry Scott came in and went after Oklahoma and Texas, and they were going to bring some other schools along with them. And then, officially, I believe Texas sort of pulled out of that. But if you look at what Larry Scott said, he pretty much said, well, we looked at those schools and we found them academically wanting to bring in, those 6 Big 12 schools. And, so this is par for the course for them to play the, you're not academically worthy. It happened a year and a half ago when Texas and Oklahoma leave, and many of the Big 12, the high rate 8 remaining schools, they're like, where do we go? We're lost, and sort of like what the Pac-10's feeling now with USC, UCLA, but even more so, only 8 schools left, and huge brands, massive blue bloods, Texas and Oklahoma, both bigger than anything that USC and UCLA can offer. So I sort of get what's happening, but those 8 schools were reaching out looking for a lifeline, and what did the Pac-10 say? Sorry, you're not good enough. We don't want you. We're fine.
Yeah.
So forgive me if a lot of Pac-12 or Big 12 people are feeling the need to stab back, to punch back. They've been the punching bag. They've had 6 teams leave the conference, poached by other conferences over the last decade or so. And this is maybe the first time that they felt like they're on offense. So it's interesting just to watch everyone say, well, they're just over the top. They're crazy. They're just aggressive. Your mark is just leading the charge. And it's interesting also, you've got these rivalries. We've heard Utah, BYU. I'm a BYU fan. I'm not going to get into a pissing contest there about the Utes and BYU. But BYU is a little sensitive because we've watched realignment for well over a decade. We feel that we've been, Power 5 worthy for 30 years or more. But because of a cultural fit, the geographic conference that should have had us, the Pac-12 never wanted us, and we're past that. We did independent, and we are definitely in a better cultural fit in the Big 12. But that rivalry is sort of stoking all this defense and part of flaming these, fanning these flames. and then the other thing is just, I think there's a little bit of a political proxy war going on, where you have, the Pac-12 being, by far the most liberal of all the P5 conferences, and then you have the Big 12 and SEC probably tied for the most conservative. And so I think there are some people who get into this and make it a little bit of a political proxy war, and which is unfortunate, it's stupid. It seems like everything nowadays goes back to politics and what can I prove. But there's this guy on that I sort of initially became a fan of. I'm sure he's been talked about here before, Tony Elsmore, and he came out with this presentation a little over a year ago, just showing here's these fancy spreadsheets and PowerPoints, and look at these fan base sizes. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh yeah, BYU's doing pretty good on that. I think we're honestly, it had us just a little bigger than you thought. I thought we were bigger than that, but it's all in all, it looked like the biggest brands were represented. But I don't know if you've seen, but I've gone through that since then, because I started to see he just put some very weird and inappropriate comparisons. No means no about
I saw it.
The Big 12 is like a sexual predator who keeps pushing girls into, pushing teams into uncomfortable situations. Just really weird, inappropriate stuff. And so, I went back, I looked through his fan base estimates, and, he has, I think, USC in the top, or Oregon, I think, is in the top, is number 8 in the nation, which is like, they got a big brand and a pretty big fan base, but I don't think they're anywhere near the top 15, maybe, top 20-ish. I live in Tuscaloosa. I understand fan base because I've looked through these metrics for years. It's just one of my hobbies that I just...
Hello.
And social media following, and just sort of get a pulse on, who's really the bigger brands out there. But I went back and I looked and just sort of lumped all the Pac-12 teams, and then all the Big 12 or actually all the Big 12 teams. So this is before you realign it. So they keep USC, UCLA, and Big 12 kept Oklahoma and Texas. And if you look at the numbers, he had the average Pac-12 school. He said he based these off of New York Times studies and Nate Silver and some other things at 538. And, but he didn't really tell us sort of how he adjusted their numbers. But, if you go back and look, he has the Pac-12 average team over tripling in fan size over that time. Now, all the conferences he thought were underrepresented by what Nate Silver had in 2011. I think he sort of based things from there and then just sort of extrapolated over the next decade. But he had the average Pac-12 fan base over tripling in size, and the average Big fan base not even doubling in size. And the Pac-12 was way higher than any P5 conference, and the Big 12 was lower than any P5 conference. And you just sort of have to think, does that really pass the smell test at all? It just doesn't. You look at what's happened in attendance out in Pac-12 country, you look at their TV ratings, the trajectory out there has been heading on the downhill, irrelevant in the college football playoff in almost a decade, almost never, putting teams for basketball championships. Occasionally UCLA gets a Final Four. But, I mean, they've just been irrelevant on the national stage in major college sports. But, his studies, quote unquote, show that, they're tripling in fan size. I've gone back and looked at those. Unfortunately, I've been able to get information because he's actually taken the link to that, to his information. He's like killed the link. Tried to go back in and pull that original data.
Hello. Hello.
It's just someone who's very slick and presents a good PowerPoint, and I think he's well spoken and well educated, but he has a definite agenda, and that's become so blatant. He is the biggest, Pac-12 rules, Big 12 rules kind of guy that I've seen out there, and he's just personal attacks and very political sometimes, and I just don't understand it. I've heard some people accuse him of being, a paid consultant of Cal, if not the Big 12 in general. But again, I don't have any evidence of that. But I've seen it rumored in more than one place that he's on the dole for some of the. And that's funny too, if that's true. Assuming that's true, I think he's the one who started this Big 12, the Endeavor plot and the 12 and on. And wouldn't it be ironic? This would be the biggest gaslighting campaign of all time if he really is on the dole of a Pac-12 school or the conference.
Yeah. All righty. Appreciate the call, Jeff. I'll make a comment after we got other calls coming up. I do appreciate it, and I'm going to make a little comment about the person you're talking about. Okay?
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the phone call. All right. First of all, before I get to that great phone call, Daniel Leonard, thank you for the super chat. Leningrad, the godfather of the smacks. He is the PATC Howard Cosell. Lenny, give us a call at 763-260-1333. He is our Howard Cosell. You will hear him eventually on this show in his famous Howard Cosell imitation. Daniel Leonard, thank you so much for your generosity to this show to help us keep the lights on. Daniel Leonard, appreciate it so very much. Adam Vulture, Greg, I can hear the thunder of the stampeding buffaloes. Thank you for your generosity, super chat. Appreciate it, Adam. Appreciate you coming in once again into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue, Mr. Buckeye. Super chat, thank you so very much again for your generosity, your continued generosity to the show. And another one, Jonathan Weaver. It's sad to see the Sisters Conference of the Big Ten taking on water like the scene in the Titanic, where the band is still playing and the ship is sinking. Hopefully the Pac schools find a lifeboat. Absolutely. If the Pac-12 can't hold together, hopefully those schools find a safe landing spot. Thank you, Jonathan Weaver, for your super chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of you for your incredible generosity. Going back to Jeff Fuller's phone call. I'm not going to get too particular. I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds about this. About the gentleman that Jeff Fuller was talking about. I will say this, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably say this once in a while at Peek Around the Corner. It's okay to be right about something, but it's not okay to be right about something and be a jackwagon. It's okay to be wrong about something, but it's not okay to be wrong about something and be a jackwagon. When you go out in social media and you start smearing everybody, and I mean everybody, that disagrees with you, saying that they're lying, saying that they're part of Endeavor to bring politics into college sports discussion, when you're just trying to shut down all discussion, that don't play good with me. That doesn't work for me, brother. It does not. So I don't even care if that person's right about something or wrong about something. If you cannot do it without being a jackwagon, I have no reason to listen to you or to have a discussion with you. College football, come on. It's the greatest sport in our country. We love to talk about it. We love to argue. Did you see how I handled the Utah BYU situation back and forth tonight? If they're going to play, whenever they play, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all these rivalries, we disagree with each other. We just disagreed with each other on what this Colorado Board of Regents is going to April 17th. What does it mean? I think it's kind of serious. Some of you don't. That's fine. That's great. I don't know. I mean, why in social media? We're supposed to be talking about things, discussing things, having fun about things, talking serious things. College YouTube channel, of course we're going to be speculating. Sometimes we have intel here at Peek Around the Corner because we are a we. You know, but I'm not going to point to somebody and say you're a liar just because you disagree with me. Just because somebody says something that isn't quite what it has been in the past. I might say I think you're wrong, but I'm not going to say you're part of a plot. And the person that Jeff Fuller was talking about, he brought in people. He brought in people that I know. When he brought in the whole 247, all part of being this plot, are you crazy? So I don't, at this point, you know, is he paid? Is he paid? Probably not. He's probably not a paid consultant. I can't imagine anybody paying him for what he has done with the discussion in and around this fascinating story. If they are paying him, wow, they did not get their money's worth. Because this is not the real Cloak and Dagger of this Endeavor plot. That's not real Cloak and Dagger. None of that is. There's a lot of real Cloak and Dagger we talk about at Peek Around the Corner. None of that has any effect of what's going on. I'm sorry, but McIver tweets have no effect on what's going on. But people are so hurtful that he puts out tweets. Come on, he's not having any impact. Rick George spending time batting down his tweet, that's ridiculous. Bat down the report of Andrew Michon. Now that's meat on the bones. That's something. So yeah, Jeff Fuller, thank you for the phone call. But when it pertains to that gentleman and the people that are around him, I don't even care if they're right or wrong about certain subjects because they seem they can't do it without being a jackwagon. Right here at Peek Around the Corner, we're going to treat each other with the utmost respect. Even the Wisconsin evil Badger fans, we're going to treat them with respect here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you for your call, Jeff. I'm going to put the phone lines back on. Let's go. 763-260-100. Cameron B. If Colorado, Arizona, and X and X, two other schools, go to the Big 12, and Oregon and Washington also leave, what happens to the Rose Bowl? Woo! Great question. Now, the Rose Bowl is no longer truly, really tied, somewhat tied to the Pac-12 and the Big Ten champions playing each other, kind of, sort of. Great question. I have no idea. Thank you for your super chat. I really don't.
Call from
Monovision.
Mo Envision. Mo Envision is in the house. Mr. Buckeye, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, Greg.
Good evening, sir.
Just wanted to touch on a few topics here. One, you made the statement that none of the PAC schools want to leave each other. I think that is not correct, based on the comments of the UC Board of Regents, where they're trying to get Cal, Stanford, Oregon, Washington into the Big Ten, and we're going to leave the other 6 to their own devices.
Yeah. Touche.
Second point I would make, somebody commented that somebody from Colorado said the Big 12 was a JUCO league. That's actually not a quote from somebody in the Colorado Board of Regents. That was the opinion of a journalist in Denver.
Okay.
So that wasn't a direct quote from the Colorado, anybody associated with Colorado. Just what his opinion of what he thought the administration thought.
Got it. Thanks for that. Thank you for cleaning up aisle 5.
Speaking to Colorado.
Yeah.
Speaking to Colorado.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an executive-only session, or executive session only, highly sensitive information, could be anything. Everybody might just want to pump the brakes a bit. It's not unusual, but yes, it's probably about conference realignment.
Yeah, probably is. I think so too. It may not be, but it probably is.
Well, and like you said, they all want to stay. Colorado doesn't want to join the Big 12. Utah doesn't want to join the Big 12. But as the wise man once said, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. Better to be in the Big 12 than a backfield pack, because the Big 10 did not hire Tony to not go out and expand. You don't hire a TV guy and a digital distribution guy 7 years before your next media deal. It just does not. Another caller was mentioned Occam's razor, that it does not compute that you would hire someone like that if you don't have plans to add an additional media partner.
Let me do a devil's advocate on you, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, you don't bring in a TV exec with all that experience not to expand before the next 7 years. However, there is a lot of work to do. Big Ten has a lot of work to do, right? CBS, NBC, Fox, they're all media partners to the Big Ten. They're onboarding of USC, UCLA. We've always heard, Jim Delaney always talked about how difficult it is to onboard new members into the conference. So there's a lot of work, right? There's a lot of synergy. They do a lot of things here to make it all work. So
I don't disagree, but I think you can also add to that equation multiplication by subtraction, or by addition rather. Adding 2 more media partners out on the West Coast in Washington and Oregon would actually help reduce some of that onboarding for USC and UCLA, because you're going to alleviate some of the travel issues, which is, I think, the biggest onboarding issue with USC and UCLA is trying to figure out the travel logistics for athletics.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a lot there. I think we've said this over and over again at Peek Around the Corner. I think even if you want to make the argument that it doesn't really alleviate the travel issue, even though if you want to completely ignore the fact that the student athletes of UCLA and UCLA would travel less outside of their time zone if an Oregon and Washington came in to the conference. If you want to ignore all that, it's still the perception that the Big Ten, if they added Oregon and Washington, the Big Ten message can be, see what we did here. We added 2 more Pacific Coast schools because we want to alleviate the issues around travel for our student athletes. It's the perception. It's what they want to. I don't think the Big Ten presidents want to sit here for the next 7 years and talk about UCLA, USC being home on an island in the Pacific Coast, especially when they're thinking about expanding east when it becomes available.
I agree with that, Greg, and I would add to that, not only does it do that, but it potentially adds a block of 10 p.m. start time games to sell to a new media partner.
Yes.
You're not going to add 12 10 p.m. games, but you could require that USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington all play a 10 p.m. start time game once or twice a season. And sell that to ESPN to come up with the extra scratch to add in Oregon or Washington. Likewise, if, as we discussed briefly, Tony Petitti's resume in regards to digital distribution, he could create a Friday night package with that to sell to Amazon.
Yeah.
And you could require Oregon and Washington to be on that platform more and alleviate some of the concerns about exposure from the smaller teams to actually give them a slot on there.
I tell you what, if the Gophers can't get anybody in the transfer portal, which opens up tomorrow, April 15th to the 30th, if the Gophers can't get any defensive depth linebackers in the secondary, they might as well put us on Amazon for Friday night games. I'm sorry. I'm bitter.
Well, I think
terrified.
If Amazon was, if Amazon was willing to put some money behind it and promote it, that Friday night slot on Amazon could actually be good for some of those teams.
Yeah, it could.
Especially if you have an Oregon playing a Minnesota or a Washington playing a Purdue. You know, I think it could work, but I just wanted to put that out there. I'm still leaning towards somebody's going to move. It's just a matter of who moves first.
I think so.
I noticed Brett McMurphy's tweet that Tony doesn't actually start till May 15th. They've got an interim commissioner until then. So, but I'm sure that Oregon and Washington are still talking to people about working out all the kinks. But a half-share membership is still going to make you more than a full membership, whatever the PAC winds up with as a media deal.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say, Greg.
All right.
Great
Thank
show.
you, brother. Appreciate
Glad
it.
you survived. We were worried about you this afternoon.
Yeah, I know. We're fine. Everything's fine. Little bit out of our control. I think we've got it all figured out. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But thank you.
And
thanks for the great phone.
One more thing before I go, Greg.
Yeah.
When Ohio State eventually plays Oregon on the road, I'm going out there to meet up with Western Civic and get a hold of whatever he has. That must be some powerful stuff.
Okay. Great call. Outstanding call once again. Yeah, it's going to get cold tomorrow again here in Minnesota. We had some warm weather, but here comes the cold again. Tony says Big Ten and Disney are not on speaking terms. We'll see. Maybe they can get back on speaking terms. The question is ESPN owned by Disney? Are they on speaking terms with the Pac-12 right now? That's the question. That's the question. That's the question. Lot of coffee talk. Curtis, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. Again, if you want the best coffee experience you ever will have, go to the link in the description box. Go to the website of Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. Order yourself a bag. As my wife said, Mireya Hernandez Garcia Flugar, the Little General, Organic Bali Blue Moon. Now that's the best stuff. That is the very best stuff you can get. So go to that link in the description box. Big show tonight. Big show again. If you new to peek around the corner, please subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button. Share the video with your family and friends. The phone lines are now open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Talk about anything college football. It's been a Cloak and Dagger Friday. Jim Reese is absolutely correct.
Call from
Tim H.
Tim, the floor is yours.
Hey.
Thanks for calling.
Hi, Greg.
How are you doing,
Good to
sir?
talk to you. Very good. Very good. How are you?
Good.
So, I've been following for a long time, kind of a realignment junkie, but I'm from Dallas and a Longhorn.
Got
with a wife who's a Bruin. But
okay, all right.
I wanted to kind of echo something. The live stream from earlier this week, maybe Wednesday, with Lewis, where he was talking about the cross. I guess the kind of the cross-pollination of geographies. And I just noticed that, not just, I kind of paid attention this past year when Baylor played BYU, that was the best ratings in that time slot that occurred since UT played Cal in 2016. And so when you think about that, it's like that's really Baylor's not a huge school, and BYU's has a big alumni base, but they're not Power 5. So that kind of makes a statement when you compare what you can expect with kind of USC and UCLA when they're going to play the Big West.
Fan intensity.
And so I think. Yeah. And so I think with your mark, he's thinking that, well, I've got BYU and I've got this test case with Baylor and BYU. They're going to be in conference, and if I can kind of prove this concept where the real ratings come from these rabid fan bases, which will pay more attention, I think that's kind of what he's trying to do, and that's how CU and Arizona and potentially Arizona State and San Diego State kind of play into that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I kind of wanted to add up front is that the NCAA tournament was just played in Houston, and we have a neighbor that went to Florida Atlantic, so he went down there for the tournament, and he said the biggest fan base in Houston was really San Diego State, and they were super rabid, and they drank a lot, and it's like that really fits in with kind of the Big 12 mindset.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
And so it's like you've got a rabid fan base. You've got Southern California fitting in with this fourth time slot, and you have BYU that kind of fits that Utah already. It's kind of like you've kind of got this situation that really kind of plays into, if you're talking about chalk, it seems like the four schools, if they were to go to the Big 12, are kind of Arizona, CU, Arizona State, and San Diego State, with Utah being the odd man out. And I understand that's kind of a tough pill to swallow because there's this emotional component to Utah being part of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel for it. It's really, because I've got some friends that go there and they're super excited. It's a beautiful campus. They've achieved a lot, but anyway, that's kind of something I just wanted to kind of share on that front.
Well, we did an episode on it. We did a PATC Chalk Talk episode where Jason Scheer was interviewed by 365 Sports, and they asked him the question, who would be that fourth school if it was Arizona State, and Colorado that decided to pull the trigger and go from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, and Jason Scheer said, I have no idea. And then he went on to say it could be somebody who's not currently in the Pac-12. And, of course, in my opinion, it sounds like your opinion and probably a whole lot of other opinions, if that would happen, if the fourth school that that joined the Big 12, if the fourth school is not a Pac-12 member, San Diego State, for all the reasons you just said. So it could happen. It could happen. I would say the chances are pretty low, because at that point, when 3 Pac-12 schools are leaving for the Big 12, someone else has got to jump in that boat. That's part of the Pac-12. So yeah, great comment.
I had one more quick comment.
Yep.
It's adjacent, but to talk about the way that conferences can maybe paying players and other sports and so forth going forward. I heard something on kind of on a Longhorn component that talked about paying people as employees, and at least in Texas, and I'm assuming this plays into other public schools as well. There are issues with public funding relative to at least public universities, so that if you treat the athletes as employees, they may potentially lose some funding. And so when I heard that, that seemed like that kind of made sense, that if that's the case, the conferences would be a better, conduit for that to occur. So I just wanted to kind of add that and just try to get your take on that.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to get to another phone call. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Fantastic.
To accept, press 1.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the name. Hello? 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 Call again. Call again. Call again. Tough Tony. Go for Tony.
Call from
Eric.
Yeah, I didn't get the name there.
Eric.
Ed?
Eric.
Eric, the floor is yours, Eric. Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to apologize to you personally. One, I didn't mean to hang up on you in the middle of your last comment, and I sincerely wasn't trying to turn it into a BYU Utah thing, so I want to apologize.
No problem.
My main point I was trying to make is the Big 12 as a whole, not just BYU, fares better academically and endowment-wise than people give them credit for. And a question I have for you, and I think you agree, is no one still has answered this. It all comes down to leverage. What is the Pac-12's leverage in making a deal? What is their leverage? The biggest two things that affected realignment that everybody missed is the Big 12 hiring Brett Yorman as their commissioner and him jumping ahead in the pecking order. I don't think that the Big 12 is any way a far superior group of schools to the Pac-12.
Okay.
I think they're very, very equal. Very compatible to each other. The difference is the Big 12 got in first. The Big 12 could very easily be in the same position that the Pac-12 is right now. Yeah. If the Pac-12 would have negotiated a deal before the Big 12 may be sitting there having a hard time to make a deal. The bottom line of it is leverage.
Well, not everybody missed it. We at Peek Around the Corner did not miss it. On October 30th, I know we have a lot of new people on our show, a lot of new subscribers. Go back to October 30th. Go to our YouTube channel. The announcement that Brett Yormark made the deal, got the media deal done. We at Peek Around the Corner said that he hit a home run, that he jumped ahead, and that the media recession was a coming. And the Pac-12 just royally screwed up. I got raked over the coals. Everybody in the chat room who's been with me since day one knows I got raked over the coals because they said, people were saying it's absolutely ridiculous what Greg Pflugar is saying about the Pac-12. Just took a shot to the side of the gut when it comes to future exposure. So not everybody missed it, but the person who truly missed it was George Kliavkoff. He absolutely blew it.
I agree, and the Big 12 could easily be in the same scenario that the Pac-12 is now.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, I want to give my condolences of my BYU Cougars beating you out for that big recruit today.
Yeah, we as in the Minnesota Golden Gophers, we needed that one. I don't know what we're going to do. They might be calling me, 54-year-old fat guy who's got some eligibility left to play linebacker because we are so thin at linebacker. We're going to have to go back into the portal April 15th, right? The portal opens tomorrow. So we got to make it happen. Yeah, that was a big loss for the Golden Gophers.
One comment on the advertising front that the other gentleman mentioned with the Baylor and the BYU game last year.
Yeah.
One thing that makes, and I'm not saying this because I'm a BYU guy, it's a fact, one thing that makes certain schools valuable like Notre Dame or USC and even BYU to a much lesser extent, I'm not putting them on the level of those schools, I'm saying to a lesser extent, is they have fans all over the country. You know this as you deal with advertising. They have fans in a lot of different states. And so you're not pigeonholed into regional advertising.
Yeah.
You know, Joe's local car shop, You got BYU fans in Florida, Texas, Utah, California, Florida. So when you advertise with them, or they advertise a game that's on there, it's national advertising. It's not regional, and that's a much bigger thing than people think.
Yes, exactly. And there's a big difference in advertising, the type of advertising, when it comes to the Big Ten versus the SEC. Big Ten advertising, they get a lot more national advertisers. SEC is a lot more regional. These CBS, NBC, they wanted in on the national advertisers to come and advertise on their channels for this national conference of the Big Ten. And again, you have to give incredible credit to Brett Yormark because he made the decision. Our strength versus the Pac-12, our strength versus the ACC is we're the conference that can become a national conference in this change in time. So I think he's been absolutely brilliant, and we said it from day one on October 30th. We got hit for it, but I think we're going to stand up pretty good when people write it in the history books. So
you will, and you are right on the money. And most of these national television channels have their content now. They don't need much more content. So there goes the Pac-10 leverage circling down the drain.
Yep. Great call.
That's all I have to say, but I love your show out here in Mesquite, Nevada.
Thank you.
Me and Mr. Fuller, who called into you, me and him have known each other for probably 10 years. We're good buddies there on Cougar Board. He's a great guy. Enjoyed his call. He's really good with stats and stuff, but you do a great job, Greg. You're a class act. Your wife's a class act. And I just also want to say the tribute that you did for Golden Blue Guy was really classy, and you got a lot better voice than you give yourself credit for. you have a blessed night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
You bet.
Call from
Randy's in the house. The floor is yours, sir. What do you got to say? Lost him as well. Please call back, Randy. Please call back.
Call from
PSU Nitwit.
PSU Nitwit. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, blue and white weekend. We're all excited up here in Happy Valley. How about it?
Yeah, now what time do you play?
Oh, man, I'm actually going down. I don't know what time the game starts, but I actually have a family member that plays on the team, so I'm going to get down early and enjoy Penn State weekend.
Ooh, okay. All right. Geez, I hope I didn't do Greg the Cooler on you guys, though.
No.
I got the Nittany Lions. Winning the Big Ten this year, so geez, I hope I didn't crush your hopes. We'll see what happens.
Oh, man. Hey, you know what? We're all due, Greg. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're way. Yeah. That tackle that you guys got. What is his name? Fashanululu or something?
Yeah.
He's outstanding.
We've got. I mean, the things that are happening here in Apple Valley. We have twice as many recruits coming in this weekend for Blue and White Week. There's an excitement around the program.
Yeah, the time is now. The time is now for Blue and White. The time is now for Franklin. The only, of course, Buckeyes and the Wolverines are huge hurdles, but Drew Aller. I love Drew Aller. Okay. Love his high school tape. There are people that I fall in love with. There are people that I absolutely fall in love with when I watch their high school tapes. And I'll tell you another guy, J.J. Cole, the quarterback at Iowa State. Okay, he's not going to be the starter. It's going to be Hunter Decker to begin the season. But J.J. Cole is one of these guys. I love the tape. Drew Aller was one of those guys for me. So I think he's going to be an absolute stud. But until we actually see it, right, in big moments, in big games, there's going to be a little bit of a question. I'm sorry, I'm taking up all your time. Go ahead, PSU Nitwit, the floor is yours.
To talk about Aller, I've had people down at Penn State. I've seen him throw. He's a Dan Marino arm guy.
Yep. God, I can't wait. I love college football.
You haven't seen a Dan Marino arm guy for a long time.
Nope, I have not seen. The quarterback, geez, I'm getting old. The quarterback, the Sooner guy who transferred to South Carolina.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
You know, that guy, his arm has a little bit of a Dan Marino to it. But no, I get what you're saying about Drew Aller and Dan Marino. Absolutely.
All right, I'm just calling in on this Pac-12 situation, the smoke and fire burning, man. I tell you right now. And here's the thing I ask people need to put all together. Number one, if we're investors and you know Washington and Oregon is not going to sign a grant of right,
yeah,
are you going to invest in that stock? And the answer is no. If you're a media partner and know that's going to happen, why are you going to jump in and say, hey, let's do a media deal? When you know two of your partners, two of your programs aren't going to sign a grant of rights. So the longer this plays out, I mean, they're just digging their own grave.
Yeah.
You have Washington and Oregon being silent. If they want to save themselves, they need to come out and say, we're going to do a 5-year deal. It doesn't matter about Colorado. It doesn't matter about Arizona. The two big dogs in that conference aren't saying anything. The media people, if you were ESPN, would you invest in the Pac-12 right now? No. So I just want to throw that out there. I know people are just kind of getting into the weeds with all this stuff. And as long as that problem is not solved, the Pac-12 is going to have a big problem. Because I am not investing in that stock, knowing that. So you take care, Greg. I'll listen to your comments.
Beautiful. Thanks. Great call. Great call by PSU Nitwit guy, Drew Aller. He's going to the blue and white game. He's got a family member on the team. That's exciting times right there.
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis is in the house. Thanks for calling, good sir. The floor is yours.
I'm impressed you stayed on this late. It was a beautiful evening here and was out at my son's soccer game for the last 2 hours. So I haven't heard any of the calls. Because obviously much more important. But
yes.
I want to say, first of all, that this week, for anyone that's followed West Virginia for a long period of time, West Virginia's always been in the middle of realignment, and MHVER, before he was on Twitter, was on message boards called Blue and Gold News way back in around 2010. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that he would trigger. I mean, he's put some things out there over the last 15 years, but I'm wondering why hasn't someone tried to shut it down? If this is not true, it's crazy stuff. I always look at. I mean, it's entertaining as can be. It's entertainment. He's not Brett McMurphy. He's not Dennis Dodd. He is what he is. But to have the Colorado AD jump in, which means he said something just that apparently triggered something within the Colorado inner circle. It touched a nerve that caused the AD to take that step. And that's a questionable step to take because he put another tweet out today. The AD hasn't commented. So does that mean by implication that what he said today was accurate? And what he said 2 days ago was not? Once you start commenting in that respect on accounts that are anonymous accounts, then it sets a standard. So it's just we've reached a level with this long, drawn-out, ridiculous process going on for over 9 months. This was going on last summer during football media days. And to a point now where we have ADs commenting on anonymous accounts because So where does it leave it? I don't know where it leaves it, but there's obviously some truth to it, because if this was way off base about the board, the regents doing something, or at least considering something, not doing. They're not doing anything on Monday, considering.
Yeah.
If it was way off base, then you just ignore it if you're in a position of power. And I still don't know why he wouldn't have just put out a press release, and why he did not then talk to the media. Why doesn't he answer questions and talk about the Colorado AD? So quickly, there are three ways that Monday could be. It could be they're committed to the big Pac-12 and they just want to hear an update of the numbers, but I don't know if there is an update to the numbers, so I give that a 10% chance.
Got it.
I give about a 25% chance that, yes, they are getting somewhat closer to making an exit out of the Pac-12, because it's perhaps been determined that the money's just not going to be there in a TV deal. Or they're in the middle where they're going to give the Pac-12 1.5 to 2 more months. I mean, I think June 30th this has to be wrapped up, because San Diego State has to leave the Mountain West by then.
Yes.
That's finally a hard deadline that will force some things to happen.
Or they have to pay extra money. Yep.
Yeah, they have to pay money. So, that'll have, I think that's kind of your outside date. And it's also the end of the fiscal year. Or they're just preparing a backup plan that if the Pac-12 does not come up with the money, then that's where they're going. But we will see. We've heard different versions, and depending on who you read, all these supposed insiders on Twitter of anonymous accounts, a lot of them have different theories. I don't know where we will go, but I'll say this, that the board saying matters as opposed to update is telling, because if you have a matter, and I was on a school board once, believe it or not. I was on a school board, and we had executive sessions, and it's pretty similar to what goes on with the regents. They can't deliberate in an executive session. You can read the room, if you will, and that's what tends to happen. You read the room to see where everybody stands without doing a quote-unquote deliberation, because once they deliberate, they have to be out in public, sunshine law. So, but you can do enough to sort of read the room and kind of get from the questions being asked during the discussions, during the fact-finding. I mean, you can fact-find, talk to the attorneys. You can find out where they're going with it. But matters to me is a little bit more than just an update. And also, they did not put Pac-12 in there like they did at least a year ago.
Yeah.
But with that said, we don't know. I suspect, if I think my best guess, we're a month away at least from Colorado deciding whether to stay with the Pac-12, because the Pac-12 has finally perhaps presented their number, or leaving. I don't think they're leaving in the next week to 10 days, as some people would hope. I would like to see this come to an end. It's been the most mismanaged thing, and I think even the most ardent Pac-12 supporters who want Colorado to stay, I think everybody agrees the fact that this has gone on for 9 months means that Kleofkoff has completely botched this. He set the standards too high. Yeah. I mean, they thought they were going to take their presidents and their conference on a cruise around the world, stopping in Italy, France, and all kinds of beautiful places. And now it looks like they're going on a train ride across the middle of the country. And so they just did not deliver what was promised. And they're not going to deliver what's promised, barring a miracle. But we'll see what happens. And if they do a deal, my last point, it's going to be short-term. It's going to be some kind of 3-year deal just to prolong the agony if, indeed, the Big Ten does not take Oregon and Washington. But it's just ridiculous. I don't know what we'll see next. I never thought we would see an anonymous Twitter account get an engagement from the athletic director. It was one thing what Utah did with Dennis Dodd, because what he said was more benign and more kind of chuck and tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Colorado athletic director wouldn't go and make a comment to Andrew Marchand, who's actually an accredited and respected journalist.
And
but either way,
no one has batted down his report.
No one has. So I think they're serious about it. It's just the timing. It's just the timing we don't know. It's going to be a week, a month, and in the meantime, will the Pac-12 get a deal? And we will see. I will be looking forward to this ending. I know it'll be tough because you'll miss all the calls, not as much talk about once we move into the battle for the Gold Rush of 26. But let's hope it's over. But I think it's 2 months.
I look forward to discussing the 2023 football season on every single live show after the saga's over. Of course, there's always other stuff going on, so we cover everything college football. Do you have time for me to ask you a question, Lewis?
I do.
Okay.
Over.
I'm just asking this question. I have no idea. Okay, I don't have the answer to this question. None of the reporters have indicated this at all. But I'm going to ask you, do you think at an official level, not just using people available to you to speak on your behalf, but on an official level, from president to president or athletic director to athletic director, do you think at this time, on April 14th, that University of Colorado has spoken to the University of Arizona in some fashion, in some way, when it comes to possible, hey, are you going to the Big 12? Do we coordinate this? Do you think there's been any discussions between those two universities?
I mean, I have no idea, but my guess, because again, I've always said I'm no insider, is that yes, there probably has, and if anything, at a minimum, it's a discussion among the money perches, Greg.
Yeah.
Because the money perches in these conferences all know each other. They see each other at the conference tournaments every year.
Yep.
There's a community of money perches, of wealthy donors. And it's happening. They tend to be good friends, and a lot of them know each other. And so I think at a minimum that's going on that way because all these state universities have open records laws, and they can't put emails in officially from the president. So, yes, I think there is potentially some discussion about it. I mean, one team cannot go, but it also may just be two. If anybody did leave before the Big Ten makes its final decision, it would be Arizona and Colorado, and then you wait and see what happens. But yes, there could very well be some coordination. But you also have to be careful about backstabbing because some of the stories I'd heard about what went on after the fact that I heard these stories, what went on at the Big East in 2011. When you had West Virginia wanting an angle out of that conference and Pitt and Syracuse kind of out of nowhere, almost overnight. You talk about a quick process. Pitt and Syracuse were out of the Big East in a matter of, I think, 4 or 5 days. You're looking back in 2011. This has been the complete opposite. It's been a prolonged process. And the president of Arizona even said he has a lot of friends in the Big 12. He's even talking to Big 12 people informally. So it's hard to believe he would not be talking to his brethren. And the only difference is Colorado's been disciplined. Other than Rick George weighing in, they've said nothing.
Yeah.
They've been remarkably – and is there no beat reporter in Denver or in Boulder that wants to kind of look into this a little bit? I mean, is there nobody that would try to – I mean, Denver's a big city with a major newspaper. And nobody's even – that makes me wonder if it's serious in a way because I know in Morgantown when there was all this realignment going on, the whole state, everybody in West Virginia was on the edge of their seat about it.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing that at all here from these people. So it's just the most bizarre. They got the spring game coming up. They can't hide that. When the spring game comes up, there'll be questions about the realignment, and it'll have to be. There'll be questions. They won't be able to hide.
No.
The AD will be out with reporters. Coach Prime will be out. I'm sure he'll be asked about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought a few days ago, maybe they want to get something done before the spring game so it doesn't hang over the spring game until uncertainty. But I've also heard enough other reports of people I kind of respect what they've been bitsing out that they're a ways away. That's not going to happen after 10 days. It's going to take – that's just too big of a decision, and it's going to take a little bit longer. So if it happens, I'm prepared to hold on. But let's hope it ends soon. It's been – it's been a very, the only process that's worse is the ACC when they added, remember in 2002, they were going to add Boston College, Syracuse, and Miami, and then the Virginia governor got involved.
Yeah.
Syracuse and
Virginia
Boston
Tech.
College got kicked out.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty bad because actually Syracuse and Boston College were invited. And they were just doing their due diligence. At the last minute, the presidents kicked them out for Virginia Tech over the governor of Virginia. That's probably worse. But this process has just drained people. And we didn't have Twitter back in 2006, thank God.
like we do now. But oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the people attacking each other and getting vicious and using all kinds of pejorative language towards each other. This has got to end. I've got a bottle of champagne. So this daggone thing is over. All right, Greg. Have a happy Friday night.
Yeah.
A good weekend. I'm off to watch some more soccer with my kids.
Got it.
This weekend.
Beautiful.
So I'm off. We'll definitely keep our head on a swivel. And,
keep your head on a swivel.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Great call. Opie, thank you so much for the super chat. Once again, your incredible generosity to this show. Thank you so much. A new fund to buy a lawnmower so we can find the host in the tall grass and the weeds. So we can rehide him again for the hide of the host for part 3 of December 26th. Opie wants some more information. We've had a part 1 where we had to stand down. Part 2, we talked about the 3 options that Florida State is looking at. Potential options. Looks like it's one of those 3 if they decide to pull the trigger in challenging the ACC grant of rights that is owned by the conference. Is there going to be a part 3? No, there's going to be a part 3. That story is not going away. And it's going to be with us for a very long time. I mean, this is drama. This is drama that's going on right now because of all the economic forces and the changing landscape of college football and college sports is affecting all of this, what's going on in the Pac-12. This is nothing compared to what's going to happen in ACC country. And it's just begun. We're not at the beginning of the beginning, but we're at about the middle of the beginning of this incredible story that's going to hit us. Because there is no solutions. That unequal revenue sharing, you go do what you think you all need to do. You think that's the solution. You guys know what we think at Peek Around the Corner. That's not a solution. What have you. But once someone pulls the trigger and challenges the grant of rights, it's not by coincidence that we said on December 26th, when we gave you all an alert about Florida State, that suddenly 2 months later, Florida State's athletic director is talking about it. It wasn't. This was planned. This was planned by Florida State. It's planned by other schools. They're not working with each other. No coordination. We're not saying that at Peek Around the Corner. So hang on, Opie. Part 3. Oh, that's coming up. That is definitely coming up. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate your generosity, Opie. Once again, wow. Thank you so very much. Yeah, that was a great call. World-class call. Lewis, fantastic. Please call again, Lewis. Please call once again. Endeavor has blood on its hands. Sky says, when it's all said and done with realignment, I hope someone writes a book about it and includes behind the scenes information in it. Okay, I think we're going to shut it down. We've been on the air for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. I want to thank all the great comments, the incredible phone calls. Lots of us disagreed with each other just a little bit here, just a little bit there on what that April 17th, what that agenda means for the April 17th Colorado Board of Regents meeting. We're going to be covering it here at Peek Around the Corner. And then those Arizona meetings on April 19th, April 20th, April 21st. There's 4 meetings lined up. 2 of them looks like they're public. 2 of them are not public. We shall see. We're trying to get confirmation on it. So a lot of action on this story coming up in the next week, possibly this weekend. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. Subscribe to this channel. You have to do that. Follow us at Flag Empire on Twitter so you get notified of when we're coming up next, because we could pop at any time here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you for the incredible, generous donations, for all your kind comments to us here at Peek Around the Corner, to myself and the little General Mireya Flugar. Thank you for all those kind, very, very kind comments. Here at Peek Around the Corner, this PATC community makes this channel special. You know, we've only been on the air for 8 months. 8 months for a YouTube channel is nothing. You can barely establish yourself at all in 8 months. But the PATC community, these phone calls, these comments, you are the star of the show. You make it rock. You make it roll. Thank you. For next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so